twisted through 7 suns of gold, and the gypsy was insisting that his story.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Soberful podcast. I am Veronica Valley, and this is...
I am Chip Summers.
Welcome, Chip. So we're talking today about getting old, aging and sobriety. This has been suggested to us to talk about aging and sobriety. So that's our
topic very close to my heart.
So when we were talking about this, I thought, right, Chip, you take the lead in that because you're old. But then I had that moment of like, actually, so am I. I'm going to be 50 next year. That's actually, that's one of the things, right, that I still feel like, and I remember being like 20 something and someone who I considered old saying, I still feel like I'm 25. And I was looking at them going, bloody hell, that's not possible. I'm having that moment where I'm going to be 50 in 2 months. And I'm having that kind of like, blimey, that's actually like proper older.
No, it is.
But I don't feel like it is.
I know. My father, who died when he was 96, always said he felt about 17 inside his head. Yeah.
Wow.
But and I thought, oh, that's quite nice to hear. But now I'm 74, nearly 75, and I think I feel about 17 in my head. It's like same sort of thing. I mean, I know I've got lots of knowledge and experience, but actually, as an individual, I feel, I can be immensely childish and stupid, and long may that last, actually. Long may that last, yeah.
So before we get into it, I just want to let our British listeners know that I'm going to be doing a live workshop in December with Club Soda in London. And I think the date that we have is Saturday, December 3rd. Club Soda are opening a premises. They're opening an alcohol-free off-license, but they're also going to have space to do workshops and whatnot. And I think I'm the first one. So I think there's only 20 tickets. So that will be out on my social media and mailing list and Club Soda as soon as that's available. But it's a little 2-hour workshop about surviving, not thriving, not surviving the holidays, dealing with family, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And I have coordinated it around potential England football games. So hopefully it will not be in the middle of an England game, because that would be a disaster.
Sure.
Because the World Cup is going to start in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But I think I'm in London on the 3rd, so I will try and get along.
Oh, well, that would be great. Yeah, we're still in the pinning down the details.
Well, if it's Saturday the 3rd, I will be in London.
Oh, well, maybe we can do it together then. Okay, well, watch this space, pencil it in, everybody check, and we would love to see you. Okay, where are we going to start? Aging. So we want to talk about, we can talk about getting sober a little bit at different ages, but we have done a podcast on that already, and you can check that one out. Mm-hmm. We want to talk more about aging and getting sober as you age, and how alcohol affects you as you age, and how the ability to change affects you as you age.
I mean, there's so many places you can come in at that, but for sure, one of the impacts of aging is that you are doing increasing damage to your liver. Your liver is a very powerful, important organ in your body. It does not like alcohol. It has real trouble processing it. And when you drink consistently over long periods of time, a measurement level that can be done medically is your gamma GT level. Normally, the average range for that is somewhere between 12 and 25. Most people who come into rehab in their 40s, 50s, even younger, it doesn't matter, but that measurement can be nearly 1,000. I have seen 2,000. And so that is one of the impacts that will slowly begin to have an effect as you age anyway. If you consistently carry on drinking, your liver is going to become much more fatty. It's going to become, and that's one of the reasons that many people do actually have liver failure, is because their liver's just given up over the years, given up trying to cope with all the alcohol it's been asked to process. So that is one immediate impact of age, and the long-term impact of drinking is that you're putting up the chances of you doing damage to your liver. And that's the other, but it's also a beautiful organ in that it will, if you stop drinking, repair itself incredibly quickly. And I've seen people come in to rehab with readings 800 plus, and within 4 or 5 months, it's almost normal again. But which is great, but there's no question about it. Long-term drinking or heavy drinking doesn't actually have to be long-term. It could be somebody younger drinking a lot. Excessive drinking is going to affect your liver in a very detrimental way. It affects all sorts of aspects of your body, but it certainly affects your liver, which is the main kind of processor of things in your body. And so that would be the first sort of point I would make about aging, is that if you're continuing to drink, you run a much higher risk of that happening. I've also noticed that age has an impact on when people think about getting sober. I mean, I used to notice when people came, if young people, and I'm seeing younger and younger clients personally in my practice and in rehab, it was unheard of really to hear somebody in rehab under 30. It was absolutely unheard of. You never got that. Whereas now, easily getting people 19, 20, 21 going into rehab. And but I think it can often have an impact of, if you come in when you're young and you're in a rehab with people who are much older than you, the temptation is to think, okay, well, they lasted till they were 45, 50. They're still all right. So maybe I've got another 20 years left in me, which is obviously a big mistake
before
to make.
I really need to stop.
Yeah. And then I have seen, because I have had a client my eldest client was 82, got sober, and he only lived till he was 85. Only. I wish I could live till I was 85, but he lived till he was 85, but had 3 really, really enjoyable years. He went fly fishing, and he really had a lovely, much different ending to the one he would have had. But I can see that there are a lot of people who may be 60, 65 plus, who are heavy drinkers, who can think, what's the point in getting sober? I'm 65. Even if I get sober, what am I going to do? I'm not going to get much enjoyment out of life. And that can be a real barrier, I think, to making the decision to get sober. And I would obviously say, as I've just given an example, that, you don't know, it's going to make such a profound difference to your life that even if you are 65, you will be able to do so many more things and have a really nice old age, as opposed to a very sordid and difficult old age.
It's the health impacts. The health
completely.
Impacts are massive. I have a really good friend whose husband had quite serious cancer, and hopefully he's on the track to being well. And he just doesn't drink. It's just super healthy. He's always doing marathons and kayaking, really fit and active. And the doctors said that part of the reason that he did so well under the treatment and his recovery is because he was, and is in his 60s, is in really good shape and taking care of his health.
Yeah.
It really matters when you age. The health impacts are humongous.
Yeah, they are. I mean, and it's such it's safe limits of alcohol and the way, all those things, people, I think, dismiss a lot of that as just kind of mumbo jumbo, but there is so much really good empirical evidence now about the damage that alcohol does, but not only that, but the way that alcohol attacks or interacts with the cells, actually in a way that many other chemicals that we put in our body or food we put in our body doesn't. And I think, as you get older, that is going to have a greater effect. Your tolerance is going to be absolutely huge, which is a factor because, a lot of people look at somebody who's, I don't know, 50, they've been drinking continuously for years, and they're putting away, I don't know, a bottle of vodka a day. That's an extreme.
But not really getting much of a buzz.
Exactly. No, exactly.
That's the thing. It's like you're having to drink more to get the buzz, to get the feeling that you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. That when that person first started drinking, 3 or 4 vodkas, they would have got drunk on it. And as you get older, your tolerance gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're able to tolerate larger and larger amounts of alcohol without getting drunk. And that, I think, is one of the things that people, because they have been drinking continuously, wine is a classic one. They've been drinking steadily for years and years and years. They're in their mid-40s, mid-50s. They're able to tolerate, without falling over, without being stupid, a bottle plus a night. And they think, well, what's the problem? So many people have said to me, well, I'm just drinking like everybody else. I only drink a bottle a night, but actually, when you first started drinking, if you drank a bottle of wine, you would be very, very ill. But over the years, you've built up a tolerance, and that build-up of tolerance, I think, can lead you into a false sense of security that you haven't got a drink problem and that it's not doing you any harm. Whereas, of course, it is doing you harm. And one of the things that catches a lot of people out is that they stop drinking for a little bit. They've completely misconstrued how much damage the alcohol is doing, and they give up alcohol, and then they can have problems with possibly having a fit. But then often, if they have a period of time off, and I think it's a difficult thing to say, but a lot of people, even really bad drinkers, can have periods of time when they don't drink. A couple of weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes even a month.
Yeah.
And they think because they can do that,
they don't have a problem.
They don't have a problem. And they go back again to drinking what they used to do before. It's going to have a much bigger impact on the body. It's just that comes about from age, from drinking for a long period of time, that kind of misconstruing your ability to drink a lot as being indicative of you not having a problem. And I think that's something to watch out for, because I think if you're able to tolerate without any consequences at all, bottle plus a night of wine, that's indicative of you having a problem, because your tolerance has got so big. So I think that is sort of something. Age or a length of time of drinking can have a detrimental impact on your ability to grasp the fact that you have a problem.
The other thing is risk of falls as well.
Yeah.
I was reading something somewhere about, it was in a newspaper, about all of these kind of different health experts about what their top tips are for aging well. And they all had sort of quite random things. And one of them was strengthen your ankles, because falls as you get older is because our ankles get weak. So doing keeping them flexible and that kind of stuff, I was like, never would have thought of that. So when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm sort of doing these ankle exercises. Yeah. But that's a big thing that I've seen with my aging clients, is they have really bad falls. Yep. I mean, a fall when you're 25 is very different at a fall at 65 or 70. Yep. I mean, it's and then it's a domino. They're in hospital, and then they get a bug, and then that it takes months for it to heal, and then they're not mobile, and then they're putting on weight. It's like the domino effects of just that one thing. It really can impact health in a big way. Yeah,
I mean, somebody who's a bit more elderly might be living alone, drinking quite frequently, falls over, no one there to help them. Yeah. Those sort of things are difficult. I mean, we are making a bit of an assumption of a kind of lonely old person drinking, but I just think that age is a really important. I mean, obviously, I've been doing this 38 years now. And in that time, I have seen various demographics change completely. The number of women presenting for treatment. It's gone, it's now 50-50, as it should be, reflective of the population, which was never the case when I first started working. I think age demographics have changed completely. As I said, when I first started working, it would have been really unheard of. And I think they would have probably found it very difficult to be in rehab, because the average age of presentation was about 40 plus, probably about 40. And so if you were 20 and you had a problem, you would be basically in rehab with your parents or various versions of your parents, which is not going to be really good. So, I mean, I've noticed over the years, I've been working in this long enough to see how, as I said, these things have changed. We now have rehabs for young people.
And I had that experience where I got sober in 2000 and I was 27 and I went to AA, and the majority of people, I'd say a good 80% were 40 plus. And it was a big enough fellowship that I did find people roughly my age. But the reason for that is drugs, right? Because I 100% believe if it wasn't for cocaine, I'd have carried on drinking for at least another 10 years.
Yeah.
It was cocaine and alcohol, but it was cocaine that finished me off. I mean, it just chopped me off at the knees very quickly. And that's the reason why it changed, right? That we got more and more younger people. Nobody, I don't know, it's more common that people are just, what you're talking about is years ago, it was just people were just abusing alcohol. So it was like a longer runway. Yeah. When you bring drugs into the equation, that makes that runway much shorter.
It does.
I mean, I do have clients who it is just alcohol they abuse, but it's commonly, and plus not just illegal drugs, prescription drugs are so much more prolific, I think, than they were 25 years ago.
Which is an age factor. And again, medication, one of the things that the commonest of course is antidepressants.
Yeah.
Now, if you read the small print on antidepressants, it suggests that you don't drink alcohol alongside it.
But I didn't think that applied to me when I read that.
Well, nobody does.
I thought there was a clause that meant that doesn't apply to Veronica.
Yeah. I mean, alcohol is a depressant in itself. You're taking antidepressants. It's not really working very well. And that is a very common thing that comes along with, because I don't know, but everything, all the demographics are changing so much. And so, but I do think, I mean, as you said there now, that it's so common now for alcohol and Coke to be a real, very, very popular evening's
combination.
Incredible. Whereas when I, came into rehab, somebody who did Coke was an addict. Whereas now it is so recreational,
it's your next door
so
neighbor.
accepted. Yeah, exactly. You are that, and as you said, you're doing it's double jeopardy, not double jeopardy. That's completely wrong. But you're doing alcohol and you're doing Coke as well. So I think that, as you quite rightly say, that has pushed down the age at which people think about changing their lifestyle, because everything's exaggerated. Everything's you're pushing a lot of damage into a short period of time. And I think people are therefore hitting, for want of a cliche, rock bottom much sooner, because they are doing a lot of Coke alongside their alcohol.
Yeah.
Young people are doing, and that's an age factor for young people.
So can we talk about accessing help at different ages? Because we touched on that, and it's really important, because I think we've all had this experience where I've had clients who are older, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they need to go into rehab. And they go into rehab and it's full of 22-year-olds. Yeah. And they just don't identify, relate. So accessing help at different ages. Whenever I have a client I need to place into rehab, I always try and have a good conversation with the coordinator about what does your client group look like. Because personally, my experience has been I can set up people to fail when they're just like, there's no identification here. And I didn't do any of those things. I think it helps, certainly in that rehab group experience, that, it's the same if you go to meetings. It's helpful to have people that you're like, oh my God, that's me. Because it is, you do that. And I've definitely had that with younger clients being like, well, they got sober when they're 45 and I'm 22. I've really got another 10 years and it's like, really? Because it's terrible now. What do you think's going to happen in under 10 years?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's all perspective, isn't it?
It is all perspective, because actually I know that, somebody who's decided at 22, 23, and my first wife in recovery got sober 23, I think, and remained, that would be about right. I think about
No, I know Lisa was 27. I'm pretty certain she was the same age as me.
Was she? Okay.
Pretty certain.
She was young. She was young.
Yeah,
young.
Maybe 26, about that, yeah.
Yeah. I know it's a cliche, but, whatever process we use to get better, we can find reasons why we don't belong with that particular group. There's too many women. There's too many men. They're too young. They're too old. They've done things I haven't done. They've done things I don't want to do. We can always find the differences. And I know it's a sort of self-help cliche, but, if even a 23-year-old, if he listens or she listens, will be able to find something to identify with somebody who's 60. You just got to be able to keep your ears open long enough to be prepared to kind of work through your kind of prejudices about, I don't belong here, there are not old people here, or the vice versa, I don't belong here, there are not young people here. Well, you need to start sort of trying, and that's where a good therapeutic team is so important, because they can kind of help people work through that. Okay, why are you here? Why are you here? Let's have a look at the similarities of what brought you here. But it definitely can be a problem for, I think, younger people who see older people who have survived, who have still had quite a long drinking career, and think that they can emulate that without any problem. But as we said just now, the difference now is that a lot of people are not just drinking. Very few young people are just drinking. They are adding other substances, particularly coke, to that as well. So you're obviously putting health. Age is a factor here. Is that things changing and constantly changing, and what was true when I first started working isn't true any longer. And I think you have to keep on adapting your approaches to help people to take that into consideration. And I think, and also what's happened is medical knowledge has increased as well, which is great. But one of the things is that medical knowledge is showing is that the impact of alcohol on the body, which we can now actually see in a much more sort of concrete way, evidential way, is very detrimental, very negative. Whereas we always used to say, alcohol's really bad for you. Well, now we can actually sort of see the damage it's done.
It's actually catastrophic.
Yeah, it is. It's
catastrophic.
There's
a great podcast I'm now giving to all my clients, and it's Professor Huberman. It's
I do it as well.
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I do it as well. I've given that to so many people, and it talks very clearly. And he's a Stanford professor.
Neuroscientist.
Yeah, he's no mug. And
he knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff, and it's I learned from that particular podcast.
Me too,
And I definitely give it to all my clients now and say, just have a little listen to this and see how you think your safe drinking is actually... because that's one of the myths that he blows apart completely. Is that
there's no safe zero.
There is no safe limit. That so-called limit that's put out there by governments is actually the absolute top level that you should be doing it, and anything above that is very, very risky indeed. And he doesn't just sort of say it; he really explains why and how. And
but based on really solid research and really solid science. And that's what I liked about it too, is he blew apart that whole like perception that it's like alcoholics and really bad binge drinkers who are affecting their health. He blows apart, like, if you have 2 glasses of wine tonight, this is what that does to your brain and your immune system and your heart and your digestive, like he really, in a way that you're like, bloody hell. Yeah, so it's odd for us to recommend another podcast, but it's called Huberman. The Huberman Lab, I think it's called.
And it's a fantastic podcast to listen to.
And it's on, I think it was a few months ago, but you can just put it, it's on YouTube as well. and it's on alcohol. And he does some really interesting ones.
Yeah.
But the one on alcohol, I give to all my clients now because it's like, don't take it from us, take it from the science person who really breaks that down. So
one of the things, other factors about alcohol and aging at both ends of the spectrum actually is when you're young, your body, if you're between 15 and 23, your body is still developing. Your brain is still developing. All your kind of body is still developing. If you're throwing alcohol into that mix, you're really messing about with the way that process is happening. You're really interfering with nature's natural way of your body kind of growing and establishing itself organically. And so I think it's a problem for young people, but I think for old people, there are factors that come into play. For instance, joint pains, rheumatism, arthritis, things that need medication. I have to take prostate medication. So I know you have family members who've had similar problems along those lines. Now, if you're taking carefully prepared medication, which a lot of older people do have to have, of both genders, HRT, stuff like that, I'll guarantee you that on every single one of those medication things, it does say, don't drink alcohol on top of this because it's not going to improve the impact of these drugs. We have to take some drugs. We have to take, I could choose not to take my prostate pills. Not sure it would do me any good. But there are certain things that come along with aging that require us to take medication, blood thinners, all sorts of things that come along like that. Well, we're not helping that if we're drinking on top of it as well. If we think somehow that drinking is going to improve my arthritis, well, it numbs the pain. It probably does, but it's not doing your arthritis any good. So I do think there is, because I certainly remember a time when there was kind of, you mustn't take any medication at all, which was ridiculous. But I do think that if you are prescribed medication, read about it. Read what the impact of alcohol and that medication mixing together are, because as you get older, as I get older, I am forced, if you like, to take more and more medication to help combat various things that are going on inside me. And I need to give those medications the best possible chance of success by not drinking. And I don't think that those drugs were not designed to be mixed with alcohol to produce the best effect.
The other thing is my client, I'm standing on the precipice of menopause, so I'm perimenopausal now. And I was very ignorant of this when I was in my 20s and 30s and working. I was very, very ignorant about how menopause affects women or just how hormones really affect women. And that is to do with, there was a real culture of silence around menstruation and all of that kind of stuff that it's just the curse and you just get on with it. So it's only now that, Davina, Meg Matthews, there's quite a few celebrities now finally talking about it, and we're talking about it. But when I have female clients, and my sweet spot for female clients tends to be over 40, 50s, drinking and having an alcohol problem in menopause is causing mayhem. I mean, with the night sweats and sleep and energy, it's literally the worst thing you can do. Like there's no for that period of time, and I'm really seeing that in a lot of my clients are struggling. One of their motivations was, I have to quit because I can't. Going through the menopause and having a hangover is impossible. So I mean, all of those impacts on that's the other thing that we've not kind of touched on is, as you age, alcohol impacts female bodies different to male bodies. I have a male client who I'm working with, who's quit in his 50s, and we're working, he's doing really well. He's getting, working on getting his health back and was drinking quite large amounts. And I said, that's the difference between men and women. That's why Amy Winehouse was dead at 27. And that you have got, 150 pounds on her and a metabolism that's very different. It affects... It really does. The gender differences, I think, show up. I think they show up at any age, to be honest.
They do, yeah.
But
I was just thinking as you were talking there, which I do. what a strange name the curse is. I bet it wasn't a woman
I know.
who came up with that
Well, it's
phrase.
biblical, isn't it? It's from Adam.
It is
It's all
biblical,
to
but
do
I
with
mean,
Adam
it's
and
still,
Eve.
but
I know.
yeah, but to still retain it. Oh, yeah, it's such a derogatory terminology. But
and it's the whole culture of not talking about it. Like
Yeah,
it was sort of
absolutely, yeah,
whispered about
yeah,
when.
yeah.
But yeah.
But also something you said is that, alcohol has got huge amounts of sugar in it. So you do tend to get bloated, you put on weight as you get older. So that starts to become a health factor as well. The cliche kind of man who drinks 16 pints is not, or woman, is not a svelte guy working out in the gym. He's probably overweight, falling off a bar stool, and putting his health at risk because, it's not just that he eats a lot and doesn't exercise. He's putting huge amounts of sugar in. And one of the great things at any age about giving up alcohol, and we've got plenty of before and after people in Soberful to show photographs of, you lose weight suddenly. You start to look younger, and it's almost you could almost use that as an example of how damaging alcohol is, because you take a picture of somebody when they come into rehab or begin to stop drinking. Okay, here's a photograph of you now. Okay, now let's take a photograph of you 2 years later. You look younger. You've lost weight. Your skin is better. Everything is improved. So what is alcohol doing to you? It's
to your internal organs.
Yeah, it's aging you. It's damaging your cells. And obviously, the longer you drink for, the more kind of progressive that damage becomes. And it's wonderful, actually, to see people stop drinking and almost defy the aging process and have people say to you, oh, you're looking so much younger. You're looking so much better. And I think that is an indicator, very unscientific indicator, of how much damage does to your body over time.
I always tell my clients, you will reverse age by 5 years.
Yeah.
In 6 to 12 months, people will start noticing and coming up to you and saying, you look great. Like you're looking really like that. I every client I can think of has had that happen when
Absolutely.
maybe haven't seen relatives for a few months and they've been like, blimey. And I remember in Focus, because you always used to do the photo when
Photograph
people came in.
Mission,
and the program was like 10 to 12 weeks. So, I mean, it was, and then at the end, and even in 10 to 12 weeks, the difference was astounding in some people. I mean, astounding.
Absolutely.
And that's in the face.
Yeah.
Imagine what it's doing to your internal organs. It's quite remarkable. I like it when people post before and after pictures. It's really...
exactly. So do I. Yeah, but I mean that measurement I gave you earlier on the gamma GT level, that also can drop from the high hundreds down to pretty much normal in a short period of time. The liver is a very restorative organ, but as I think I've said before, when it decides it's had enough, it decides it very quickly and doesn't give you a chance. It just goes, do you know what? I'm done here. I gave you enough warnings. I gave you pain to manage. I gave you, but you didn't listen. I'm out of here. And it happens very quickly and can be very damaging.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be a movement of young people not drinking so much. There's a lot of press going on in this country.
Do you believe that?
Well, no, I don't. I believe that they might not be drinking as much, but I don't believe that they are not taking mood-altering chemicals as much.
That's what I think. What I think. Yeah. I think. Yeah, I agree.
There's huge amounts, masses of weed smoking, masses of
and it's herbal and organic, so they're...
Yeah, exactly. Like opiates, herbal and organic. I think there is a real misconception that young people have got their act together and they're not doing anything like that, but that's not my experience. My experience is they may not be drinking as much, but they are certainly doing ketamine, coke, weed, substances, and it's become so commonplace. And I know I've said this in previous podcasts, but 30 years ago, if you pulled out a packet of cocaine in a pub and just stuck a little bit up your nose, you would be thrown out of that pub. Nowadays, that would be quite all right. You could go to a crowded pub, just turn away a little bit, stick a bit of Coke up your nose. Nobody would bat an eyelid.
Yeah.
And that indicates to me that it's become so commonplace. So I do think that, well, there may be evidence that young people aren't drinking as much, but I do not think that they are becoming a really, really healthy generation. I do not think.
That's my take on it as well. Is I have a friend who works in like business investment, something like that, and I was telling her about what I do, and because the fastest growing market is the alcohol-free market for alcohol companies, like the big alcohol companies.
Yeah.
And she said to me, she said, "Oh, I can see the numbers. I'm seeing the numbers, like they're falling of alcohol, like," and she kind of said it in a way like, I don't know if your business is going to be viable for that. And I'm like going, oh, I don't think I have a problem finding clients until the day I die. Yeah. I'm like, it might be dropping a bit, but trust me, there's still millions of people abusing alcohol.
Absolutely.
And I think that just because it doesn't mean that there's a group of people who are living without substances, I think that they're using, exactly. That's what I think too. I mean, the younger generation are using chemicals.
Yeah, I mean, the age of presentation for alcohol problems dropping is an indicator that young people are drinking
drug use rising.
Yeah, exactly. Drug and alcohol use rising. So, and I think it's such a thing I'm glad we're talking about it, because I do think it comes up a lot in young people's minds that they've got years and years left.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes up in old people's minds, kind of, what's the point of doing this? Because, my body aches and I'm getting old and I've only got whatever length of time left. So what's the point?
So I want to enjoy my whiskey every night.
What harm am I doing to anybody? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all it is just elaborate denial, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I always put that question back, because that's a canny one that people try and use, like, my drinking is not that bad, and I'm like, it's easy to find someone who's worse than you. There's always someone worse than you. The question is this good enough? Is this good enough for you? Is like the blackouts or the whatever's happening, is that good enough for you to continue like that? Would that be good enough for your kids to be like that? And then that completely reverses that. It's all, what we're talking about is just the way when we age, how we just how denial works, right? It's just just different versions.
But
of denial.
Also, I think as you get older, the idea of recovery becomes more frightening. I think if you've been drinking, I do. I think if you've been drinking for 4 years, let's say you started drinking when you were 20, and at 25 you decide that you've had enough, you're looking at turning around 4.5, 5 years of behaviour. If you are 45 and you started drinking when you were, let's say, 20, for the sake of easy maths in my head, you're turning around 25 years of behaviour. And I think if you've been, gaining all your social acceptance from the ability to drink and sort of be funny and that's been your social armour for 25 years, that's how you've got by in difficult situations emotionally for 25 years, that's how you've become sexual for 25 years, that's a big thing to ask somebody to change. And a lot of people go, I don't think I can do this. I've been doing this for so long that I think the idea of changing is too frightening. So I do think that is a big factor in age, with people of say, who've been drinking, let's say, for 20 years plus, who think it's going to be so difficult to turn that around because I've been doing it for so long that, it's going to be too hard a project to do. It's not even, this goes beyond what's the point of it. I just think people think it's I've been doing this for so long. I find the idea of change very difficult. I mean, we all find the idea of change, anything, very difficult. Changing the way we drive to work or something, I don't know. We find that kind of thing. So the idea of completely changing the way you go about living your life socially and in any kind of recreational way, that might have been going on for 25 years. I think it gets scarier the older you get.
What I find interesting, and I'm observing this in myself, is the habits you have. when you're older, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how that expression, how you get stuck in your ways,
Mm-hmm.
and how when you're younger, you have all this sort of flexibility. I'm kind of, my 11-year-old, I'm kind of, it's like they'll sleep anywhere, you know, like when we travel or whatever, they'll just sleep, you know, they don't care. And I kind of remember being that way. I kind of remember being a teenager and like, oh, can I keep at your house? I can sleep on the couch. I like, there's no way I could not sleep on your couch, period. I would like, that's never going to happen. But do you know what I mean? It's like, and even like, it's like, I like, you know, I have to have these things at the side of my bed and you're like, right? It's like, and I mean, I like, you know, I like going out, but I like staying in.
Yeah, I like my routine. I like my routine. I mean,
that's an aging thing, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, I'm sure my son can probably go round to some friend's house and just sort of, it's late, they'll be watching movies.
Keep
and
on the couch and
no problem at all.
Not bring a toothbrush and just
I like to go home. I like to be in my bed. I like my pillows.
With your things.
Yeah. And a creature of habit, and routine. And I think, again, I suppose, you know, one of those habits and routines is this is how I socialize. This is how I drink, you know. So I do think age does play a big part in the fear factor of changing, the difficulty of how much you've got to change. And just generally, I think it can be really hard. Whereas I think for a young person, yes, there might be some difficulty in looking at older people and thinking, I've got some time left, but actually they are much more pliable and malleable than older people who are not so set in their ways. They're much more adaptable. And I think a lot of young people take to it easier. I'm probably going to get mullered now by young people, but I do think it's, God, I mean, I wish I had found recovery sooner because I did waste a lot of my life, just wasting my life. I mean,
and I do hear that in groups. I do hear that from my older clients who they get it, they've got it, that they're sober, and they do look at the younger ones and say, like, trust me, get it now. And I feel that. I feel never stop. I am more grateful as I age that I got sober at 27. Like the gratitude is just increasing for that. Because I particularly the health benefits of it and so much else and all those kind of things. But let's leave it here that we have seen people get successfully sober and transform their lives at every single age, right? You've got your 82-year-old. That's pretty amazing.
I've seen people.
I've got people in their 70s and 60s.
Yeah, I've had successful clients in their teens, and the oldest I have was 82. Yeah. I've certainly had people in late 60s. Quite a few of those. Quite a few of those.
Yeah.
Get better and really start to enjoy life and get much more benefit and make the most of this, whatever we're given on this planet, which is not long enough. Yeah. Unfortunately.
All right. Well, thanks, Chip. Thanks, everyone. We'd love to know your thoughts about aging and sobriety and anything you think we've missed. You can reach out to us on social media. Please, wherever you subscribe or listen to podcasts, please give us a rating. It would be great if you could just do a little star rating. It helps on whatever platform you're listening to. And check out the Club Soda website for when we have our event in London. I think it's Saturday, December 3rd. It's a small space. There'll only be about 20 tickets, but looking forward to that. And we'll be back next week.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.